What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, and it's grand final week. And this year, unlike when I was doing the predictions last year, the Cats are at the big dance. And so I'm really excited to go through this one, pull the game apart with you. We've obviously only got one game to actually break down and analyze this time, which means we can give it a little bit more TLC. And it's really exciting one. Geelong versus Brisbane. The Sydney Smashing Cup is what we're playing for this week, as well as the grand final trophy. Obviously, both teams in recent years smoked the Swans in the AFL grand final in the past. Now they get a chance to go head to head and decide who did it better. So it's a really fascinating game. Of course, we are now a couple of days away, 3 days and 7 hours as I record this one. And you can see the Cats, according to, betting, which I'm not like, gamble responsibly, do what you want to do in that particular space, but it does represent where the majority of people are thinking this result is going to go. The majority are tipping the Cats for what that is worth. But there's a fair bit more for us to actually break down here. We want to talk about some of the matchups. We want to pull apart this whole game in every possible respect. And the best way to do that, honestly, is to actually go back to the qualifying final and look at what occurred between these two, discussing the changes in the lists and all of those. Oh, damn it. And discussing all of those types of things. So here's what we looked at last time. And I don't want to focus too much on the ins and outs because we're going to have, Reece Stanley came out. Well, he's now officially available. Jed Buse could be on the cards. Tom Stewart is out for the Lions. Lachie Neale came in, pinged a calf. He's right on the fringe as to whether he does or doesn't. Berry has done his shoulder since as well. Interesting that the two players who came in are the ones who went out in the subsequent weeks and could now potentially miss the grand final themselves. But let's focus on this 23 for both teams because that is what is closest to the mark when it comes to actually making our predictions here. And I'll go kind of line by line and we'll just kind of work out who we will, figure will or won't be there. I am expecting that Lachie Neale will play this game. Whether he's at 100% or not remains to be seen. But I think he'll play. And I think Bruce Revel, who's one of the players who came in through the semis and prelims, I think he will be able to retain his position. And that'll, who ultimately then comes in for Jared Berry if he misses remains to be seen. Maybe Sam Marshall as the sub. There's those sorts of little interesting combinations and permutations to look into. But let's talk about what we've got here from last time because I don't expect too much change. We've obviously just discussed the Lions. Tom Stewart is coming out. Who do I think comes in? I'm going to tip, and maybe this is my bias speaking because I've been kind of beating the drum about this particular individual for a couple of years now when it comes to selections. But I think that Jed Buse is going to be the one that comes in for Tom Stewart here. Defender for a defender. Not a like-for-like defender, but a defender for a defender. And I just think that the Mark Blitzarves in the ruck thing is working way too well not to go with that again. Obviously, the Lions, as opposed to the last time we played them, and this is one big difference here. Darcy Fort was their number one ruckman last time, and that was it. They do have the big O back in as well. So you do have Darcy Fort and Oscar McInerney to factor in here. Mark Blitzarves has got the tank to run it all day with them. No concerns whatsoever. But it does mean that they're a little bit taller than last time, and there's a little bit more for us to have to contend with. I'm not hugely concerned by that still, though. Whether we're dealing with Logan Morris, Ty Gallop, Sam Day, triple prong, tall forward attack with then a ruckman floating in or not remains to be seen. And that could be a little bit of a problem for us if they essentially play 4 talls down there at different stages, one of them being a ruckman. But I'm not convinced that they'll go down that particular pathway, allowing Jack Henry, Connor O'Sullivan, and and Sam De Koning to kind of play those key defensive posts. And I think we're okay in that particular respect. In the forward line, of course, I don't think there's too much that's going to change from last time. You'll see the likes of Cameron and Lester and Harris Andrews go head-to-head with Shannon Neal and Jeremy Cameron. Paddy Dangerfield being the third tall there. Plus, if a Mark Blitzarves does go floating in, I think that is, if Reece Stanley is to be selected, that is a huge factor in this contest as well. But when we look beyond that, assuming that Lachie Neale does play, regardless of the state he's in as a Geelong supporter, quietly hoping he plays and then pings something nice and early, I honestly don't see that many changes. If you want to talk about the tagging from last time, I also see, Cam Rayner going head to head with with Mark O'Connor again. I see the hostilities being resumed between Hugh McCluggage and Oisin Mullen. I could see Mark Blitzarves actually, despite being the ruckman, I could see him, and this is especially if Reece Stanley plays, but even if he doesn't, I could see him kind of going with, competing in the ruck and then trying to run off Lachie Neale specifically. Try and get himself those two linked. Try and create a link between those two. Play the defensive role on him, but also take him on the other way. Force him to run. Burn the tank up and see if you can flush out an injury in the process. There's some merit to, I think, all of these things. How it actually plays out remains to be seen. But I honestly don't see a huge number of changes here, which is not a bad thing, I think, for both teams. What that eventuates in remains to be seen. We've got 3 days and about 7 hours to work out what that's going to be. But I can see this kind of largely being the same as before. Whether the result is the same as before is a whole other thing. And we'll talk about that right after this word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist. Visit them at shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Phone them on 035 222 2244 or visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au and use the offer code GOCATS in the voucher field at checkout to get 20% off your next online purchase.
Thank you, Cyril Cook Florist, as always, for your ongoing support of the Hoops Crew and all we get up to. So now we've got this contest to look at. And we're going to flick across to our ladder predictor here. We're going to lean into the theatrics of it a little bit and land on a final prediction. Now, you've all seen that I've been tipping the Cats the last few weeks. That is a carryover from the last time I did this. Let's not get too carried away here. I'm not just trying to drop it straight away. I want to rationalize. I want to discuss what's going to happen. But this was the net result. This is what our predictions were last week, and I'm really excited to go back through the predictions of the entire final series and just see how close the money I was. I was obviously right prelim final week. I definitely made at least, I think, a mistake in the semifinals there with Brisbane and Gold Coast. I'm pretty sure I tipped the Suns to get the job done. And then blowed if I know what I did in the first week here. But now it's all about the big dance. We've got Geelong and we've got Brisbane. And this is where the coach's box comes into it. We've spoken all about selections. We've spoken about who's going to play, what the matchups might look like. But now it's how do you overcome? If you're Brisbane, how do you overcome what Chris Scott and the team dished out last time? If you're Chris Scott, what do you do differently? Expecting that the Lions are going to be coming in, expecting Hugh McCluggage and Oisin Mullen again, Cam Rayner and Mark O'Connor again. Like, knowing that the Lions have now seen the play get run before, are they just bracing for the same thing again and trying to overcome it? Are they going to set up for something different? And Geelong needs to start planning for all of these outcomes just as much as Brisbane needs to start planning for Geelong to go back to the one wood and do it again. Geelong has proven, after losing 3 consecutive games to Brisbane in the prelim final of last year, as well as the 2 home and away matches this year, they've proven that they don't have to be fearful of the Lions. But the Lions have got the track record that says they don't have to be fearful of the Cats. That they got them last time, sure. But we don't need to be scared of these guys. So how does this end up? I'm torn. Well, I'm not torn. Obviously, as a Geelong supporter, I am very hopeful that Geelong wins this game. But I want to get the hopium out of my system here and focus exclusively on the game itself. Tom Stewart is a huge out for the Cats. If Lachie Neale plays, that's a huge in or retention of a player for the Lions. Same with Jared Berry, to a lesser extent. So what actually happens here? Honestly, I can't not go with the Cats in this particular one. I just think we are too strong around the ground at the moment. We are fitter and healthier. We've had the easier run in. When I say the easier run, I mean we've played fewer games. We're not as, exhausted. We haven't played a full run of 4 finals or 3 finals to get to this point. So there's probably a bit more in the tank. And the Lions are battling. And I am, if I was a Lions supporter, I would be, no matter what the medical teams, no matter what Lachie Neale is saying, I would be genuinely concerned about his ability to run out the game without tweaking something again. He's been 1 in, 4 out now for a little while, or 3 out for a little while now. And that's a worry for him. So I am going to go with the Cats in this particular one. I'm going to go with the Cats to the tune of 17 points. I think, despite what we've just been saying, and what different plans do the two teams go with? The lack of training sessions, the lack of match committee, and all those sorts of things, or like the relative, like the normal sort of meetings and those sort of things you would have because of all of the grand final theatrics, means that the Lions aren't necessarily going to get to plan and then try and implement a different strategy to what they tried to implement last time, such as the nature of grand final week. So I think that the Lions are probably going to have to embrace the fact that these tagging situations are going to occur again. And that if that's the case, the same thing's probably going to happen. And bar some extraordinary, matches from some of these individuals, from a Will Ashcroft and those sorts of guys as well, the result might go the same way. So I'm expecting the Cats to get up to, and be comfortably up to the tune of, 24, 30 points at different stages, with the Lions kick a couple junk time ones at the end when we've got a few minutes to go and we know the game is done. And that'll lead to the Cats winning by 17 points. But let me know what you think, everyone. That's our grand final predictions video done. That is our final predictions video for the year complete. I want to hear your thoughts. So please drop a like on this video, share it with your friends and family, use that comment section and let me know who you are tipping for the AFL Grand Final in 2025. What's going to be different? What's going to be the same? Who's going to win? I want to hear all of your thoughts. If you like this, please make sure to check out all of the other content on the Hoops Crew's YouTube channel from myself, Ben, and the chaps, and consider checking out our Patreon, where you can subscribe for $5 a month and get all of the early access, extended, and exclusive content that we are delivering there. There's also a 7-day free trial to see if it's for you. You'll find me on socials at Paul James Games. The Hoops Crew, you'll find at The Hoops Crew, and that's on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram. Until next time, whenever that is, remain Geelong strong, everyone. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you later.